And for more on that, we're now being joined by Dr. Vivek Nangia, who's the Chief of Pulmonology from the Max Healthcare Hospital in New Delhi, one of the top pulmonologists in India. So if you don't want to listen to what I'm saying, at least listen to him. You know, Dr. Nangia, I keep showing up in programs like this year after year, and it's not just in air pollution season. I quite often start saying this, September onwards, June onwards, it is going to happen again. People don't seem to believe what damage it is. Okay, let me just start off by asking you, now that I have you, let me just ask you for some medical advice. I'm coughing, my voice is hoarse, I'm feeling congestion, my sinuses are congested. Am I sick, Dr. Nangia, or am I suffering from a severe case of Delhi, of air pollution, of NCR? And are there lots of people in North India facing the same thing?
Thank you, Vikram. Thank you for having me on your show. I think what you're describing is classically what we're seeing these days. And believe me, nearly 30 to 40% of the patients that we see in the OPD walking in these days are with these kind of symptoms. And I think this is because of nothing else but the air pollution that we all are getting exposed to. Air pollution has two kinds of impacts on our health. One is a short-term impact and the other is a long-term impact. But overall, what we need to understand is that WHO also has listed it as the most hazardous environmental risk factor on our health. It resulted in about some 1.7 million deaths in 2019. And if you see some in India alone, and if you see one of the latest studies which has shown that people living in Delhi NCR, their lifespan has been reduced by almost 11.9 years because of the air that we've been breathing for the last so many years. And, it may just be a rough estimate, but it won't be wrong to say that over the years, we only see the situation worsening than improving.
Okay, Dr. Nangia, I'm going to come to the short-term and the long-term health impacts in just a couple of minutes. But, I've often wondered why people don't get more worried and exercised about this. Is it perhaps that it's only seen as a Delhi problem? This is a problem that happens in Delhi every winter, but the rest of us are fine. But actually, if you look at the data, it's not just Delhi. It's all across North India. It's across the Indo-Gangetic Plain. Is that what you're hearing from other doctors? That the symptoms you're seeing in Delhi and in the NCR are also being repeated in other cities across Uttar Pradesh and Bihar and potentially Haryana?
Absolutely. It's the entire Indo-Gangetic belt that is getting affected. In fact, there was a study I remember reading a few years back which showed that 16 out of the top 20 most polluted cities in the world are in India only. And these are exactly the cities that you've just named, some of them. But in fact, now I hear that even in Mumbai, the AQI levels are quite high. In cities like Pune, the AQI levels are pretty high. So I think it's becoming more of a national issue now, which we need to address at a national level.
Yeah, but when you talk to anybody in North India hearing about Mumbai complaining about 135 or 150, we say, well, here it's 300, 400 for weeks altogether. Let's now turn to the health impacts, because I think people need to understand this. They need to understand what this is doing to you. So let's start off with the short-term issues that people are facing. And as you were saying, there's sort of a difficulty in breathing, congestion, sinus problems. That's a short-term stuff, right? And then does it go away, or does it leave some lasting impact as well?
Absolutely. So in short term, most of the people would be coming to us with complaints of cough, cold, stuffy nose, pain here, headache, watering from the eyes, sore throat, or a foreign body sensation in the throat, wheezing in the chest. These are the classical symptoms that they would experience on a short-term basis, which of course would get relieved with medication, but not so easily and not without leaving any permanent damage inside the lungs. Usually now what we're seeing is most of the patients are developing a protracted course. They are requiring antibiotics. Antibiotics are given more out of fear that there may be a secondary infection, or they're getting secondarily infected and then having to take the antibiotics. And steroids, because sometimes the congestion in the lungs is so much, or the symptoms are so severe that they're just not coming into control with the routine decongestants and the other medication and the supportive things like steam and all. So one is that. But every time somebody has an acute episode like this, which is involving the lungs, it would leave behind some residual damage, which may not heal ever in life. How much percentage is very difficult
Wait,
to
wait,
say.
if I could just pause you for a second before you come to the long-term impact. You just said something which is quite alarming. You're saying even when you're having the short-term impact of air pollution or this coughing and this wheezing, you may say, oh, it's fine, it'll go away, I'll recover from this in a couple of days. You're saying that this could actually be leaving a permanent scar in your lungs, which will therefore be with you for the rest of your life. And that is something, therefore, that you need to keep in mind when you're spending 30 to 60 days actually breathing the poison.
Absolutely. So it's not just the cough and cold. The cough and cold may not leave as much of an impact, but once it goes into the lungs and results in wheezing in the chest. So wheezing basically represents the narrowing of the airways. Our airways are like tubes. So once they get narrowed, there are two components to it. One is because of the inflammation inside the mucosa, and the other is because of the muscles going into a state of spasm. So every time that happens, the spasm in the muscles may not come back to its full normal state every time. It may just leave back some damage. Also, if there's the alveoli, that is the air sacs, if they also get involved, then they would also leave some damage in the air sacs. Plus, it's an inflammatory cascade that gets triggered off inside the air sacs, inside the blood system. This inflammatory cascade is no longer restricted only to the lungs, and it circulates to other parts of the body as well, and can even result in acute heart attacks, even in the short-term basis.
So that's where the other aspects of this start to kick in, right? It's not just your lungs. You then start getting into the territory where you can have heart attacks, you can start having strokes, things which you don't necessarily associate directly with air pollution. If you're having coughing or wheezing, you'll say, yes, this is air pollution, but you don't necessarily associate it with a stroke or heart attacks or even the premature deliveries of babies. And science now seems to be showing that even that can be linked to air pollution. Why is that?
Yeah, Vikram, absolutely, you're right. And the main reason why we can't link them directly is because there is no one single test which you do and you say, okay, this is because of air pollution. But certainly the studies over the years have shown beyond doubt that the impact because of the air pollution goes beyond the lungs. In the lungs itself, as I mentioned, asthma, COPD, infections like tuberculosis, pneumonia, interstitial lung diseases, hypersensitivity pneumonitis, all these things happen in adults. One other thing that we're noticing now is lung cancer becoming very common in non-smokers. See, classically, lung cancer has been labeled as a smoker's disease or a smoker's cancer. But now we're seeing a lot of them in young ladies who've never ever smoked in life. But it's just the exposure to the air pollution probably that is causing this. So lung cancer, then premature deaths, as you rightly said. These are all the impacts that you would have in the lungs of an adult. In children, and even before the child is born, even in them, the impact could be huge. There could be a premature birth, there could be poor development of the lungs, poor immune system of the lungs. And as a child as the child grows, then they start developing allergies, the respiratory tract infections. In fact, there's studies which have linked the air pollution with mental retardation and certain kind of cognitive disorders in children as well.
Right, Dr. Nangia, the fact that we've now had a situation where in this entire part of northern India, it's been 20 to 25 days now of 350 plus AQI, 24 hours a day. That's what the people are breathing, 24 hours a day. Would this have been considered a health emergency in just any other place in the world, 350, 400? It's just that people here seem to got used to it. People are going for walks, they're having lunches outside. They're saying, oh, isn't Delhi lovely in this weather? Same things are being reported from other parts of northern India. Anywhere else, would this be considered a dire health emergency?
Yeah, definitely. It is a health emergency. It is just that we are not realizing it. We think that, it is, so WHO also label it as a silent killer, silent invisible killer. But unfortunately, we're seeing it all around us now, yet we're not realizing how badly it is impacting our health.
All right, Dr. Nangia, that's a rather gloomy prognosis, but thank you so much for what you said.